When all was finished, it cannot be denied that this work has carried off the palm from all other statues, modern or ancient, Greek or Latin. No other artwork is equal to it in any respect. With such just proportion, beauty and excellence did Michelangelo finish it. The Italian Renaissance painter Giorgio Vasari introduces the magnificence of one of the greatest works of art ever produced by mankind better than anybody else. Today we're talking about arguably the best snowman in the world, created using a marble block that was so badly damaged that it was deemed useless until Michelangelo set to work on it. One can only find a true understanding of art in an understanding of the artist. Therefore, let's begin with an introduction of the sculptor himself. On March 6, 1475, Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarrito Simoni, best known as Michelangelo, was born in the Republic of Florence, or modern-day Tuscany, Italy. 24 years later, he would create the sculpture David. Carving marble was Michelangelo's greatest love. After his mother passed away, he spent his formative years living with his nanny and her stonecutter husband. He spent a lot of time seeing stone being quarried and carved as a child because his father owned a marble quarry and had early exposure to the trade. Over his studies and childhood, he showed an interest in painting and sought out the company of other artists. In doing so, he secured an apprenticeship with Domenico Ghirlandaio, part of a group of expert painters that the Vatican had hired to paint the interior of the Sistine Chapel. Shortly after, Michelangelo enrolled in the Humanist Academy, established by Florence's unofficial ruling family, the Medici. He finished the relief carvings of Madonna of the Steps and Battle of the Centaurs by the age of 14, between 1490 and 1492. His prowess as a sculptor was evident. Throughout his life, his creations were so lavish that, whether paintings or sculptures, they were mostly found in basilicas, cathedrals, and tombs. Michelangelo and other artists generally preferred marble to limestone, granite, and bronze for sculpting figures because of their comparable softness and translucency to human flesh. A chisel and a mallet were the only tools used for carving. It is believed that Michelangelo used a miniature model of David to sculpt the towering 17-foot-tall full-sized sculpture. The model, which had missing arms and parts of the legs, was later discovered after it was destroyed in a fire at the Palazzo Vecchio. Later in the process, when Michelangelo was working on David's hair and extremities, he used tooth or claw chisels to define and create various textures on him. Michelangelo once remarked, "Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it is the task of the sculptor to release it." He also said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set it free." The enormous size of David is often taken to represent the biblical figure's spiritual superiority to his opponent, the Philistine warrior leader Goliath. According to the biblical tale described in the books of Samuel, Goliath was a Philistine warrior giant. He challenged the Israelite army to send a volunteer to fight him in hand-to-hand combat when they were at war. Both the armies gathered, and the Philistines anticipated a straightforward win. In the end, David, who was only equipped with a staff and sling, successfully struck Goliath in the forehead with a stone. After killing the giant, David immediately cut off his head, giving the Israelite army their win. Everyone who witnessed the battle was shocked, and the phrase David and Goliath is used even today. David's symbolism also extends to the political environment of Florence at the time. The Republic of Florence, a sovereign city-state, was well mindful of the dangers surrounding them. Because David embodied the unshakable tenacity, surprising power, and historic perseverance they saw in themselves, they saw him as the ideal representation of Florence. Michelangelo carved David from a single marble block. Agostino di Duccio, a Renaissance sculptor who had worked on the statue of David 40 years earlier, had actually thrown away the massive block of Carrara marble that Michelangelo ended up using. Agostino had started some basic work of modelling the nearly 6-ton block of marble's legs, feet, and torso, but lacked the motivation and dedication to complete the project. The Guild of Wool in Florence ordered Michelangelo to restart the project in 1499 as part of a series that would line the roof of the Cattedrale di Santa Maria del Fiore, also known as the Cathedral of St. Mary of the Flower. Michelangelo was just 26 years old at the time. But when the 6-ton piece was finished, it was obvious that lifting it would be practically impossible. As a result, the Piazza della Signoria was chosen as the location for David. It stood there as a representation of fortitude and resistance from 1504 until it was permanently moved to the Galleria dell'Accademia in 1873. Michelangelo created figurative works during the High Renaissance that emphasized harmony, balance, and the perfect form. David's realistic and meticulously detailed anatomy and his lifelike asymmetrical posture, known as contrapposto or counterpose, serve as examples of his aesthetic sensibilities. Michelangelo didn't use exact proportions when carving David, because it was meant to be seen from below. Instead, he carved the head, arms, and hands far larger than the torso and legs. David appears attentive and ready to take action, especially when seen from below. The fact that Michelangelo continued to make changes to the sculpture after it had been first displayed is an intriguing feature of the construction and growth of the David sculpture. This demonstrates his attention to detail and dedication to this particular work. David's right hand is substantially larger than the rest of his body. He's in a stance where he's got most of his weight on his right hip, like he's about to throw with his right hand, but he appears left-handed based on how he is holding the stone. As was customary for nudes at the time, David's genitalia is relatively small, maybe to draw emphasis to the attractiveness of his physique. Although David's stance appears easy and assured, his face expresses anxiousness, particularly around the eyes, as if his body is aware of the impending conclusion, but his mind is not. Most of David's historical representations in painting and sculpture chose to show him as a young kid. They frequently decide to take a moment right before he defeats Goliath. Famous pieces by early Renaissance artist Donatello and Baroque painter Caravaggio use this approach. But surprisingly, Michelangelo chose to show David as a young guy. Additionally, he cleverly decided to depict him just seconds before the battle, holding a sling and wearing a determined expression. The sculpture's larger-than-life size, another unusual feature, is perhaps a product of its intended location, the cathedral's roof. It would need to be big enough for the audience to fully appreciate the sky-high figure. In addition to having the ability to portray unmatched splendor through his artwork, Michelangelo was also an incredibly prolific and hard-working artist of the finest caliber work throughout his 88-year career. Archival records reveal that Michelangelo kept his work on the sculpture a secret until January 1504, when he finally revealed it. Since he was working outside in the courtyard, he was often drenched while doing his job. Perhaps this is where he got the idea for his working style. Reportedly, he made a wax model of his design and submerged it in water. He would let the water level fall as he worked and then sculpt with various chisels that he could see emerging. He often forgot to eat, according to his biographer, Ascanio Condivi, and when he did sleep, he did it with his clothes and sometimes even his boots still on. It was all worth it, as many Florentines were profoundly astounded by the David sculpture's beauty and sheer magnitude when it was first unveiled. The sculpture raised Michelangelo to fame, leading to the commission of the Last Judgment on a nearby wall and working on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Most artists never get recognized during their lifetime, but Michelangelo's divine talent and incredibly hard work made him an exception. He had a career that spanned the better half of a century, and maybe he lived as long as he did in part due to his passion for his work. It seemed he had the magnificence of a man who had no time to die. Do you think he represents the peak of art during the Renaissance? Let us know in the comments section below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe to Creativersity for more insights into the extravagant world of art.